Recently, we posted a video on how to do a mitered corner for any angle. However, it only applied to an acute angle. An obtuse angle is a little bit different, and David on our YouTube channel pointed that out. So thank you, David. And now we have a tutorial video to show you how to do the obtuse mitered corner in a canvas application with a double hem. If your angle is acute, we have a video link in the description of how to do that one and also at the top right-hand corner. So here's a piece of scrap with an angle that's about 115 degrees. So it's an obtuse corner. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark for a 1.5 inch seam allowance, which would be, you multiply it times 2 to make your first line. So 1.5 would be 3 inches. So I'm going to use a clear acrylic ruler and I'm just going to place a mark there. Then I'm going to measure my next line for my double fold at that 1.5 inches above that line, and we'll be folding to this later on. And we're going to do the same thing to this side, 3 inches and 1.5 inches to create our 1.5 inch double fold. So now I'm going to take double-sided tape. This would be where the side the hem is going to be folded to, and we only want to put this and fold to this line and obviously this line. We're not going to fold to that line yet until we sew in the mitered corner. And I'm going to put double-sided tape on this one. I'm going to use a Sailrite canvas patterning ruler to adhere it well. This is a Sattler marine grade fabric. And then I'm going to peel off the transfer paper on both of these. And then I'm going to fold to that line, which creates the 1.5 inch single hem. And I'm going to crease it well. And then I'm going to fold to this line. Leave that bulk of fabric at the corner here. With an obtuse angle, which is greater than 90 degrees, you follow this line and this line. So you take a straight edge and you just go across that line and you mark right on top of your single hem that you created here, and then you carry the line out over here as well. With the acute angle, it's done completely different, and we have a separate video for that, which we explained at the beginning. So now what I do is I take this and I fold this to the point and make sure that this edge here is flush. So right to the point and flush, and those two lines, this line and this line, should be directly on top of each other, and they are. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew here. Okay, I've got my machine set up for a straight stitch, and I'm going to reduce the stitch length to about 4 millimeters in length. And I'm going to start sewing right here at the edge, hold my trailing threads right on top of that line, and we will actually do a little bit of reversing here because we're going to be pulling apart there, and we're going to sew all the way up here, but we're going to stop short of that line by 1 millimeter or so. And I'm just about right there, and then I'm going to reverse. There we go. And this is the result. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut from that tip just down like 30 degrees from it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut about 1/4 inch away from my stitch, or a little bit less, like that. Then I can take this assembly. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to put double-sided tape down here because we're going to be folding this up to that line. I'm going to do it on this side, and then I'm going to do it on this side. Obviously this is just a sample piece, so it'd be much bigger if it were a project. Right to there. And we're going to leave the transfer paper on, but press it down well. And now I'm going to take it and I'm going to turn it right side out here and make sure that that corner here on the inside is pushed all the way out. Sometimes you can use a screwdriver to do that, but this one's pretty easy. And then I'm going to peel off the transfer paper on both those sides. And what I've got is a mitered corner, which is greatly reduced in thickness and looks beautiful. And you can see it goes right up to the lines that we created. And we do have some bulk in here because it's a marine grade fabric, Sattler marine grade fabric. In other words, it's a little bit thick. And you can lay that seam on one side or the other, or either butterfly it. Sometimes I do by just spreading the seam apart like this, and then it'll lay flatter. And once that's done, butterflied out, you just take a hammer or something, pound it, and that takes the bulk out. So now what we do is we take it to the sewing machine and we would sew a straight stitch across here. When the needle runs into this, sew it up here, and then if you'd like, sew a straight stitch here, doing the same thing. Here's what it looks like when we're done. Instead of having 9 layers of fabric at the corner, it's greatly reduced so that you can get a fastener in there, and it also looks a lot better. So here's our mitered obtuse corner.
Want to see more? Be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.